Hey guys, we're gonna go. Well, we're gonna get started here in maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. So feel free to gather all the good stuff, and then we're gonna get into it. So just need a couple minutes to get things all sorted on my end. So you've got time. And if you're not part of our Discord, you should check it out. It's getting pretty wacky. It's getting pretty cool. There's the link. Okay. Let me just get some. Let me get some stuff Instagram aligned. It seems to keep moving on me every time. Clearly, I have no idea what I'm doing. Thanks, Jordan. Yeah, Doggy and I just did a run. So, fresh out of the shower, all cleaned up, chilling, ready to talk tech. There's some wacky stuff going on, folks. That's okay. We're here together to look at it, try to figure out all the madness. The thing I'm most surprised by is what's going on with Claude. It's like, I mean, I don't mean to get all conspiracy theory, but I've got some theories. I'm going to share them. I'm not going to hold back tonight. Oh, and by the way, I decided to start a little bit earlier because some of the East Coast people were complaining that starting at 6 p.m. or whatever. Yeah, brother, same with me. I'm like fully maxed out. And what the, like, what is going on? I've got a story to share. But let's give people a little bit to roll on in and get their caffeine and get situated. The Pacific Coasters are probably getting a little bit agitated with me, given that I'm starting before 5 p.m. But we got to keep it real because we've got like a strong East Coast presence. What is Jacina? Jacina keeps falling asleep on the. He's falling asleep on the live stream. This one's for you, Jacina. Anyway, we're gonna start here in another 5-10 minutes. We'll just give people a couple of minutes to roll in and give me time to set up my screen. And if you're not on YouTube, Kick, or Twitch, totally get it. You can stay on IG. By the way, I think maybe we are actually live streaming on TikTok now. They keep like giving us permission and then taking permission. So, but right now it says TikTok is giving us permission to stream. So I don't know. We'll see. If anybody is from TikTok, especially if you're on the Discord, uh, Andrew, I think Andrew's on TikTok. If you, what channel am I on the Discord here? I decided to show the Discord just because it's just so cool, and I want to show you guys so you can see how awesome the community is getting. Like we've got this welcome channel, and It's just, or maybe we'll go to the introductions channel. Yeah, where people are just sharing a bunch of cool things. And this is like entirely free. There's no fee or anything. By the way, I don't even really control the Discord. I mean, kind of I do, but really it's being run by this gentleman, uh, the Dark Bite, and Colin. Those two gentlemen. But it's free to join. And what's great about it is I think it's connecting all of us like-minded folks in a single community where we can really get at the heart of things. And it's amazing some of the people that are joining. Like we went down some rabbit holes last night. Andre joined. Yeah, I want to show you Andre. Yeah, here we go. Here's Andre. I think you guys can probably see this. I'm an AI researcher focused on quantum-inspired AI models. I've been focused on it for the last 2 years or so. I've been left behind on the more modern LLM tech. I'm up to date on it when it comes to understanding how current architecture works, but I haven't done too much applying any functional systems yet. Have some cool ideas on how to mix and match new technologies. Saw a Goju video and decided to take some action. Have a Mac Mini Max Claude subscription, as many of us do. And so anyway, this is just the variety of people that we're getting. And yeah, I think we started chatting. I mean, my schedule is wacky. Like, I don't really have any kind of normal schedule. I just, as I was explaining on the Discord last night, my view is I kind of just work until my body says, nope, you have to sleep. And then I sleep, usually power nap kind of thing, and I'm out for 3-4 hours, just totally out. And then I'm back up, and then I keep going. So anyway, yesterday was one of those days. I actually I got so deep into the work and down the rabbit hole on Sunday night, I kind of forgot to sleep. And I mean, it didn't like forget to sleep, but I just didn't want to sleep. So I didn't really. I think I slept like 2 hours. And then I just kept powering through. And we have a whole bunch of stuff going on at Merle and GTT and all this stuff. So then, what was about 5 p.m. Pacific time, my body was just like, you're done, bro. So I didn't really have a choice. And I was out. But then, because I'm doing like the 3-4 hour power naps, I was back up at 9 p.m. I was actually so out of it, I thought it was 9 a.m. And I was like, oh no, I way overslept. And then I was like, oh no, it's only 9 p.m. So then 9 p.m. I got back up and I hopped online. And then we just started going down all these rabbit holes and stuff. Yes, I live a crazy life. I'm a mad scientist. I am a little bit of a lunatic. I'm not saying that you should do these things. You should do what's good for you. But the point is that the Goju Tech Talk Discord is active like at all times. We've got people across the globe. So basically, it kind of doesn't matter. Whatever your time zone is, there's going to be people that are up and want to talk about tech and get into some rabbit holes on all kinds of stuff. So you should check it out. It's pretty cool. Or don't. Like, no pressure. If it's not your cup of tea, I get it. And for all of you Discorders, don't worry, I'm only going to share the public channels. I don't like share ever private stuff. So I know many of you have been pinging me on DMs and stuff and all that. I don't ever share those things publicly, so don't worry. And if I accidentally share it on while I'm live, which is super, super unlikely, I scrub it immediately. But usually what I do before any of these live streams is I shut down all social on my machine that's private. So like Signal goes away, Slack goes away, email goes away. I still have it over here, but I just keep that off the camera. Anyway, so I thought I'd show a little bit of uh, the Discord while we're streaming tonight to show some of you that may not be part of it kind of what's what. Okay, let's give people another minute or so to. Hey guys. Yeah, just checking that chat over there. Great to have you, Corey. Sorry we're gonna miss you, but you should. Oh, maybe I'll drop the Discord over here too. Whoops, not there. Part of the reason why I'm sharing the Discord is there's a bunch of people that have reached out to me that have legitimate security concerns, and they need help. And so what I've been trying to do is we have a bunch of technical experts on the Discord. So there's a bunch of superhero technologists there, and they can likely jump in to help some of the people that are part of GTT that really like the message and what we're doing, but may not have a super deep background on machine programming, AI, software development, all that. So it's kind of like a fusion of people that want to use technology and level up with AI and all the stuff as much as possible, but at the same time not get owned, right? Because the biggest concern that I have for all of us is that we get owned. And you just don't want this to happen, right? There's almost no productivity gain that you can have. There's no customer you can land. There's really kind of nothing spectacular, I think, that you can do that is more important than not getting owned. So if having slightly heightened security or spending a little bit more time trying to understand the ramifications of just like how to be safe slows you down a tiny bit, I personally think that that's a really good trade-off to make. That's a really good system 2 thinking on your part to stay afloat, because that getting owned part will likely slow things down a lot. And also, it's probably not going to build trust on your customers, or I don't know, just a whole bunch of stuff. So, all right. I think we have given people a reasonable amount of time to join in. I'm going to keep the Insta chat off to the side just because I'm kind of liking the idea of showing the Discord to you guys. And I think if you're on IG, you can already see the IG chat. I don't actually have any idea, to be honest, what it looks like. But we'll try this out for tonight, and if this is no good, we'll switch it to something else. But I can see all of the discussion, so I can see your comment, Jordan, and I can see that there's people over here joining, and that's great. And as a gentle reminder, if you, I'm sharing a much bigger screen than what you can probably see on Insta or TikTok. So if you want to see a bigger view of Mentor, the other channel, and I'm probably going to drop something in this corner. Oh, I know what I'm going to drop there. I'm going to drop this. Yeah, because we're going to be talking about this. So basically, I'm trying to fully maximize my screen real estate here. At some point, I'll probably upgrade us all the way to 4K, because I think right now we're just HD. But once we get to, hey, yeah, no, good to have you, Corey. Thanks for joining, brother. Have a safe train ride. Whoops, wrong one. So once we upgrade to 4K, I mean, I can upgrade to 4K right now. It's just, I think the streaming services can't quite handle the bandwidth yet, or not all of them, so I'm kind of waiting. But once they level themselves up, we're going to start streaming 4K. And why that's going to be awesome is I can fit way more stuff on the screen. Way more stuff. All right. Yeah. So if you haven't seen this other thing over here about Anthropic facing backlash over Claude performance decline, we're going to get into that. I've seen it personally. And at first I thought it was just me. And then it started propagating across the news, I guess. So if you're seeing it, you're probably not alone. Hey, Lucas. Good to have you, brother. Awesome, man. Great to have you from Argentina. That's sweet. Oh, I bet you do, Sean. Yeah, brother. And appreciate you connecting earlier today and joining the Discord. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I want to hear all the theories, too. Seriously, I want us to rabbit hole on this, because I'm going to tell you a story. This is a popcorn story, guys. So if you don't have the sweet from Chile too, awesome. Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. Is our community is very diverse, and I love it. So if we get everybody on the Discord, then nobody will be lonely. Because that's a big part of GTT is really, I mean, at least for me selfishly, what I want to be able to do, guys, is I want to be able to go online at any point, any time of day, and be able to hit the Discord or go live, and then just have a whole bunch of Jeters where we can hang out. Completely impromptu, kind of like what we're doing right now. And I suspect that I'm not the only one. I suspect that lots of us in this world where we're supposedly so connected. Yeah, exactly. That's all what it is. Just bringing all the like-minded people together that want kind of an authentic experience and to feel actual connection with each other. It's strange too, right? Is that we kind of would think that given all the stuff that we have, we would be more connected. But there are studies that have shown that some of the social media has actually pushed us further apart, because we can become, I think, invisible or anonymous, or it's just too much. And then some of the connections, I think, are so fleeting and superficial that people don't really feel like they're part of something. And I'm all for doing the exact opposite of that. Exactly, Sean. Just very superficial. So I'm all about like the real deal, long-term relationships, building strong inroads, especially with what's happening with big tech, because I'm starting to have some major trust issues. I hope that Chris joins. We were just talking about, there's something he shared earlier today with me that just more kind of not great. It was something a very big corporation knew about in terms of a security leak, and they sat on for 3 months. 3 months. They knew about this sort of security vulnerability. They just got announced today. I'm specifically not mentioning the name of it for a variety of reasons, but I'm trying to figure out if I can give a hint. There is a specific reason why I'm not mentioning the name, and it's not to be coy. I'm trying to make sure that I don't necessarily get myself into trouble. uh, but basically, this just came, or at least Chris shared it with me today, and if you're doing software development, there is a chance that you're going to be affected. Um, we'll circle back to that. We'll circle back to that. And I'll see if there's a way I can share that info. I think maybe if you do a Google search on security vulnerability sat on for 3 months, software development, it might just pop right up. Okay. All right, so today, Chris, you're there. Awesome. So, Chris, if you are comfortable with this and you want to drop a link on it, I'm in a very particular situation where it's better if you share the link than if I do, for all the reasons. And to do it on the various different modalities. Yeah. Awesome. Sweet. Yeah. And Chris is on the Discord and on the Insta. We're all over the place. Okay. Let's maybe start with, yeah, here we go. Here's a link. So if you are on our Discord, you should check this out. If you're on Insta, you can probably see this on your screen, and so you can do a search on this. And if you are impacted, you may want to make some adjustments right now. In fact, it may be more important for you to potentially make some fixes to your environment over actually watching this stream. So you decide. I guess a lot of people were actually emailed today, and if you were emailed, I think that's a sign potentially that you may have been impacted. If you didn't get an email, then maybe you're okay. But some people are not super thrilled about this, especially with the delay between when this was happening and when this is potentially being released. I speculate there's all kinds of reasons for it. I understand all that, but I am of the mind that sharing information with people, especially on things that are potentially dubious, that can help them protect themselves, the sooner we get that information to people, the better, generally speaking. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I guess it's everybody's own decision. I know, I'm actively trying to sabotage my own stream so you can. This is how much I care. Don't watch my stream. Go fix this problem first and then come back. Uh, hey, Elizabeth. Good to have you. It was great talking with you as well. Yeah, Jordan. 100%. Uh, okay. And by the way, I want to have this also be an open Q&A because many of you folks have been pinging me about various problems, and a lot of the questions have overlap. So, but it's hard for me to keep track of all the things. So one of the questions is, how do you protect yourself from the AIs getting access to your IP? That's a recurring one. That's a really good one. One of the other ones is, how do we protect ourselves from vibe corruption? And I have a little bit of a plan. It's not a perfect plan, but keep in mind, we're as a community figuring this out in real time. So it's not like this is an existing thing and we've had years to figure it out. We're kind of just figuring out that this is possible, and then at the same time, we're now trying to figure out how to minimize. And so that's the second part of what I want to talk about tonight. But maybe first we can talk about Claude and Mythos, Opus and Mythos and all this stuff. I've had some time now to do a little bit of digging, and I have some ideas. And it may sound a little conspiracy theory, you know, maybe, maybe it is. I don't know. But I've just, as many of you are, I'm an avid reader, and I just needed time to read about this and process it. And now that I've had a little time, I think I have some idea of various things that may be going on. And a lot of it is maybe not super great. But I'm going to share with you what I kind of really think. Keep in mind, this is largely speculative in nature. I don't know any of this for fact, but I'm trying to kind of read the tea leaves, so to speak. Mario, what Claude has just had a massive UI change? Oh, okay. Yeah, my other Opus is doing some weird. There we go. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff going on. So let's maybe start with what we're hearing in the news about Mythos, and then some of the degradation that we're also hearing about with this part over here, the Anthropic getting some backlash over this degradation of quality. Anthropic is facing a surge of criticism from developers and power users who report a significant decline in the performance and reasoning depth of Claude AI models. As of April 2026, a backlash has intensified following data-driven reports of what users are calling AI shrinkflation, a perceived downgrade in model quality while maintaining an increase in cost. Yeah, I experienced this personally this weekend, and it was very strange to me because everything was going great, right? And like some of you on GTT, I'm hardcore power user, right? Like I'm using Claude Code and it's writing to hundreds of files, right? It's hacking on a whole bunch of stuff. It's very, by the way, if you're not an expert, I strongly recommend you do not use it this way. This is only for people that really understand sandboxing and they know how to get themselves out of trouble. we can work to level people up to use it this way. But if you're just starting out, I do not recommend you use it like this because it can quickly go awry. But for those of us that are using it like this, where we're hardcore power users, we're like cranking the volume to 11, right? We are fully exercising Claude's capabilities. And because of that, we have a really keen understanding of what it's capable of doing. And some of these things are things that we expect to see in perpetuity. Like it's sort of like a really good friend, and you know what their behavior is. So then if they start to behave in a slightly different way, because you know them so well, you're kind of like, well, this is a little strange. Something's off today, right? You're not being your normal chipper self, or you're distracted, like what's going on? So I started seeing this weekend. And again, if you're not using Claude Code as a power user, you may not see this, because it's sort of like you're cranking it to 100%. You're trying to push it to its upper bounds, and so it's maxed out, and you are deeply aware of what the max capabilities are because you're cranking it so hard. So then if it changes in that output or that behavior, you can see it. Whereas if you're not cranking it to 11, you may not notice the difference. Hopefully this is making sense. Which is part of the reason why I think that in this article, it's saying that for power users, for people that are really just going nuts, we're noticing some strange things. And so this weekend, I think it was this weekend, I was doing one of these intense tasks where it's being cranked to 11, and I'm having it process a huge amount of information. I'm having it output a huge amount of information. I'm having it cross-reference things. So literally, it has to launch off maybe 10 different agents just to keep up to do this one task. And it is very complicated, but I know what it can do. And it's done it in this particular way with me hundreds of times, right? So the sample set that I have is not just one or two. I have literally I have almost 200 sample data where it's achieved this threshold. And it did its thing. And then I went to use the results, and I noticed that it was off. I mean, it was way off from what it normally does. It was being too verbose. So it normally is doing better job summarizing things, and that part was basically absent. It was like just using too many words, which I'm trying to keep things concise. The second part that it was failing on is it wasn't adding depth and richness to the information that it normally adds, right? And I noticed this immediately because I have the pattern matching of what exactly it should be producing. And as I'm going to talk about later, I don't vibe code with, exactly. Because I think it was Sunday that I saw this, Jordan. Everything was going great up until Sunday, at least for me. But I don't think I really leaned in and used it heavily on Saturday. So I immediately noticed this, and then here's the part that really got my attention. I stopped it in its tracks, and I was like, Claude, what are you doing? This is totally below the quality of what you normally do. You know this. What's going on? I literally asked it this question, and unfortunately, I think I've restarted my machine, so I was trying to find it in the output so I could show you guys. Maybe it's in the logs. I'll find it later. Anyway, so I asked it this question because what I often find is with the AIs, if you probe, they will, and you kind of call them on their BS. Because keep in mind, they're really good BSers. But if you call them out on the specific thing that they're BSing, they'll oftentimes like come clean and say, "Oh, yeah, you got me. Hand in the cookie jar," kind of thing. So I said this to Claude. Here's what it did. Immediately, it gave me a $200 credit. Just like this. It didn't even try to address the issue. It basically said, here's a $200 credit. I apologize for the mistake. Let me try to fix it now. Now, the reason why this is unusual is for any of you power users that are out there, that's not the normal behavior when the systems are vibing, or hallucinating. When they're hallucinating, usually what you see is they will acknowledge that they are trying to pull a quick one on you, and they'll kind of apologize. They'll explain, and then they'll try to work with you to course correct. But to have the AI immediately volunteer a $200 credit, which is basically how much I pay per month for my Claude subscription, right? Because I'm all maxed out, sends me a signal that Anthropic is aware to some degree that something is up. Now, I'm not going to get to the point of saying that Anthropic is doing this themselves. We'll get to that. But the fact that it is, like, think about how many times you've called customer service on an issue that you've had. And then the moment you say, hey, I've had an issue, and they're like, oh, here's a full refund. Like, before you even explain what it is, that's not usually how it works, right? You usually have to kind of fight for this. It takes some time. This was maybe one of the first things that indicated to me that something was up. Then what I noticed is after I had informed Claude that it was downgrading the output and told it to stop doing this and return back to its normal behavior, flawless. Flawless. I mean, it immediately leveled itself up, and it's back to the performance exactly where it was before. Now, that's also very interesting, right? Because if it was actually getting misaligned, right? Like if the model itself is degrading in quality, it's not going to be able to immediately improve in quality simply by me asking it to. It's going to struggle. It's going to say, I'm doing the best that I can. I can't get to the quality that you're asking for, Goju. That's not possible. But the fact that I gave it one indication and then it gave me a $200 injection of basically covering the entire, I mean, thanks, Anthropic. I appreciate that. Right? Maybe I should complain more often. But then on top of that, immediately level itself up to perform exactly the way that it was. Now that's two things, right? So any one of these by itself might give me an indication of like, okay, they're having server issues, or the way that they're uh, performing inference over the distributed system is getting complicated. It's not working out perfectly. It's like a server issue. They'll sort it out. But the immediate customer satisfaction uh, correction, and then the leveling up of the model got me thinking, what if this is sort of an intentional thing? That they are intentionally turning down the quality of Opus for some particular reason. All right, so now hold that in your head. Sorry, Jordan. No, so it wasn't cash back. It was basically an account credit. So basically, Anthropic is paying for my whole next month or this month's subscription, basically, if I understand it correctly. All right, now hold that idea into your head. That we have these two data on what Claude is doing. And now let's jump over to Mythos. All right. So for those of you that aren't aware, Anthropic is building this new super AI called Mythos. And also there's like a project name to it, Glasswire or something or other. I don't know. There's too many code names for me to remember everything. But Mythos is the one really to pay attention to. And in fact, I think there's a VOD on Goju Tech Talk that I have. Maybe I can. I think I dropped this. Just a couple days ago. I think I talk a little bit about it, but I'm going to talk some more about this. I'll drop this in a few of the different chats just so you guys can watch this later if you are curious. So Anthropic is talking about this new supermodel, and I want to be clear, based on what I've seen, I'm still piecing this all together, so keep in mind, I'm not the knower of all things, and I some of the things that I thought were facts are like kind of wavering, and I'm continuing to kind of level up what I know. So take a lot of this with a grain of salt, because I still don't know all the stuff, and some of you that are experts, you may know more than I do, and feel free to drop it in the chats. But as I understand it, initially Mythos was a code name for Opus 4.7. It was originally like this, the internal code name, and they do this for a variety of reasons, mostly so they can talk about it internally and not say Opus 4.7. That's a bit wordy. They can say Mythos, and everybody kind of knows. And then it's also a secret, so then they can talk about it in public, and if they accidentally say Mythos, people are like, well, it's Mythos. Whereas if they Opus 4.7, you know, there's like just too many details. Anyway, initially, Mythos, as I understand it, was Opus 4.7. And then something happened, I guess. And they decided that Mythos was like a super AI or something. And then it's now being presented potentially as like its own family. It's like a new family of AIs. Just like Sonnet is its own family, and GPT is its own family, and Codex is its own family, and Gemini is its own family, right? It's like its own family line, which people are saying it might be the successor of Opus. Like, it's so powerful that the Opus line of AIs, which all of us are kind of using for Claude Code, may be retired because Mythos is so legitimately awesome. All right. So now, in the hype train that is the world of AI for a lot of people right now, inside of Anthropic, a lot of people are talking about how Mythos is this super agent that can identify these zero-day vulnerabilities and all of this other stuff that none of these other AI systems can do. I want to first start by saying this is totally fabricated nonsense. And I can say this with some level of definitiveness because Mentor can identify 0 days. And for anybody that does research, hardcore research in machine learning, if you build a zero positive machine learning system, also known as one-class classifiers, one of the key things that you get from those systems is the ability to detect 0 days. Is that it's a study of the space of normality, and anything that falls out of that space, by definition, is abnormal. And because it's potentially outside of the lens of human knowledge, it is all potentially 0 days. And if you want to know more about this, you can just read some of the research papers that we published. In particular, we published some papers at NeurIPS. I think one of the papers is called AutoPerf, and it is like a zero positive detection system for performance anomalies. And it can detect 0 days, right? So I want to start by saying that at Merly, we've been building Mentor, and Mentor is based off of Diff, and Diff is a technology that can detect 0 days, and we've been doing this for 4 years. And it's not just Merly. I don't mean this as a flex for us. Any of the very serious advanced machine learning researchers have the capability to detect 0 days. This isn't a new thing. So that's the first piece. The second piece is, at first, when I was reading about Mythos, it was sounding to me like this was super cool. That I was actually pretty excited about it because we want to be able to detect 0 days. But at the same time that Mythos was coming out, we were hearing about it, we had the Claude Code leak. All right? With that Claude Code leak, we saw the quality of Anthropic's source code, which is not great. Now, if they've had Mythos, which is supposedly this thing that can identify all these quality issues, not just security vulnerabilities, but just general quality issues with software, why on earth would you not use Mythos on your own software first to level that up to make the quality of your own software better? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. That's exactly what we would do. And in fact, that's exactly what we did. Once we built Mentor, the first thing I did with Mentor is I ran Mentor on the Nautica source code, which is my own software. And it found 70 vulnerabilities, 5 of which were crash bugs. And I immediately fixed those crash bugs. Like, that's what a reasonable, rational person, I think, would do once you have this super powerful thing, is you would use it. It's this whole eat your own dog food kind of thing, at least for me. So then you've got Mythos that they've had since February, but the source code leak happens at the end of March, and the quality of Claude Code is not super great. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can look at a lot of the stuff on the internet that talks about how this has got all kinds of issues. So that raises some questions about whether or not Mythos really is the super powerful thingamabob. Yeah, the February date is, according to some sources that I can't remember if they're public or private, but it's been shared with me that they've had the Mythos system functioning since February. I think that some of that is public, but it might not be. Who knows? Maybe it was just birds whispering this in my ear. But that gives them basically 2 months to be leveling up all of their stuff. And we know that, at least for Claude Code, that hasn't been leveled up. Like, why would you not do that? All right. So we have that datum. Then we get to this point to where they're talking about Mythos, and they're talking about how it can do all this stuff, except I basically just explained to you that detecting 0 days can already be done through machine learning using this thing called zero positive learning or one-class classifiers. Again, don't have to take my word for it. You just Google this, and you can read some of the research papers that we published or papers that other people have published. This is not a novel thing. We've been doing this for a while. Now, if it can do that at scale and with a larger context, that's awesome, right? This isn't me trying to knock Mythos. I was actually really excited about it because I want us to identify these 0 days, and I want us to level up all the stuff. So now you're getting ready to release Mythos to the public, and Anthropic then freezes in their tracks and says, hold on, we need time to do like responsible disclosure with all the open source that we've analyzed for all the vulnerabilities that we've found in them to fix them. And in the interest of fostering goodwill, I believe that. I believed that that was the case. I thought, okay, it makes sense, because the truth is, this is what we did. When we first were building the control flag system at Intel, we ran it on a bunch of very prominent open source repos, like in the Linux and Git story that I shared earlier this week. But we also ran it on things like curl and OpenSSL and GraphBlast and other very prominent repos that found vulnerabilities, and we wanted to give them a chance to fix this. That's awesome, Sean. Yeah, I want to hear your backstory. I think we all do. So that story actually checks out initially. It checks out to me. So when I first heard this, I was compelled, saying that makes sense. It would warrant them delaying the release of Mythos, so they give the prominent open source projects time to correct these things. That's a really good move on Anthropic. But then, very recently, it was announced that many of the things that Mythos supposedly has been finding are on very dated, like archived or not current repositories for vulnerabilities that are not even 0 days, that are actually already known vulnerabilities that have been remedied, or the software is already been patched. And so, like, maybe it was a 0 day, but it's already been fixed, so it's not live and nobody cares. And so there's articles surfacing now that a lot of the story that Anthropic was saying about the power of Mythos is exaggerated hype. Okay. But now let's go back to Opus and the quality decline that we're seeing. So here we have a delay in the release of Mythos, which is supposedly the new fangled, latest and greatest thing that's going to make all of our lives better. But it needs to not come out because it's so powerful that the whole world's going to be rocked by it. And then simultaneously, you start having silent degradation of their best models in their quality, while the new Mythos thing is being delayed. Why is this relevant? Well, if you degrade the quality of your current state-of-the-art model to such a degree that then when you finally decide to release the new model, that it looks significantly better, but really all you've done is made a very minor incremental advancement, you can potentially convince a lot of people that are really not paying attention. But for the people that are paying attention, like those of us on GTT that are actually, power users, this story is starting to look like it's got all kinds of plot holes. All kinds of plot holes. And it wasn't my intention at all when I first started looking at Mythos or using Opus that I would arrive to this conclusion. I love Claude Code. It's amazing. I use it every day. And it's like very, very good. I mean, I use many of the other AIs too. I use Gemini every day as well, and I'm constantly kind of pitting them against each other. But Claude Code is a masterpiece, and so it wasn't my intention in any way that I would stumble across the fact that Anthropic would be gaming us. In fact, I kind of had resigned myself to the fact that I thought most of the games were being played by that open company because they had kind of a very strong track record of doing this. And Anthropic really didn't, right? I kind of thought that Anthropic was the good guys in this story. But I have to tell you that based on the things that I'm seeing right now, my confidence and trust in Anthropic and what's going on with the quality degradation of Opus and the weird delays and stories that they're sharing with Mythos, as well as this fabrication of like, they've invented this new AI that can detect 0 days. I mean, for the love of God, just like read any of the prior stuff that we've published, my team at Intel Labs or at Merley for the last 10 years. This is not new. I mean, it's a very strange thing to flex on. It almost feels like it's a preparation for a massive flex to build a huge amount of hype so you can have an amazing IPO and have the stock just explode and then get the hell out before anybody realizes that you've kind of sold them a bill of goods. Now, I really hope that that's not the case. I really, really hope that that's not at all what's going on. But there's a lot of signals that are emerging that are just not necessarily adding up. That's kind of leading us to... It's getting a little fishy out there. So yeah, that's my story about Claude Code and Mythos. This is ongoing, and we'll continue to add more data to this, and maybe Anthropic can explain, right? This thing that I'm showing on my screen here, as far as the surge of users complaining about its quality. This is being, I saw a Fortune article today that came out where they're talking about this. So there's a bunch of people that are reporting on this. It's not an isolated thing. And that makes me believe that something's up. And the timing of it all is very peculiar. So what do you guys think? I mean, I'd love to hear some chatter about... Are you seeing similar things? Has your experience with Claude Code, especially if you're expert people that are still using it because you're super safe and it's like it is degrading, or are you seeing that it's doing just fine? Truthfully, I'd very much like to know. Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. So thank you, Chris. There were lots of people that were talking about how Anthropic is stealing from OpenAI's playbook on building up the site as it's too amazing and spectacular to release now, so they've got to keep it in lockdown. Uh, I mean, okay. uh, uh, if you say so. I mean, like, here's something that would help the case significantly. If let's just assume for a moment that this actually is real, and Anthropic is kind of uh, doing the right thing. There should be evidence of the people that Anthropic, who they're working with, those open source maintainers, right? Where they are actually fixing some of the 0-day vulnerabilities. Those people should be able to come out and talk about it. They should minimally be able to get on their public forums and say, that's absolutely right, actually. Anthropic did help us with this thing, and we can't explain what the vulnerability is, but they totally are. And it's a really big deal. And it's in the Linux kernel, or it's in OpenSSL. It's in Git. It's in Node.js. It's in something that is like big. So, and maybe those stories will emerge, right? I'm not going to rule out that that might happen. I'm actually still kind of hopeful that they are doing the right thing and this is leveling us up. But I'm a scientist, and so without evidence, if someone is just saying stuff, someone is just saying stuff, right? That's not a validated claim. That's just people talking, at least in my mind. Yeah, absolutely, Sean. I mean, yeah, I really, there's multiple really good comments coming in now. Sean, I absolutely think that the people who are helping the models level themselves up should be offered some kind of something. Like, they should be part of some sort of tokenship program where they're given some number of tokens every month, maybe, where they uh, can fiddle with things and help improve the quality of these systems. I think that's a great idea. I think maybe Anthropic has opted me in to that program. Maybe that's why they were so quick to give me my credit. Is I didn't know that I was opted into that program, and they're finally starting to give me some of the stuff. But it's kind of like early beta testers, except it's kind of more than that because the uh, training data itself. So if we dive a little bit further, there's a number of things that I think Sean's kind of teasing out here, and one of those is there's not necessarily a lot of great things that happened to construct some of these models. I don't love a lot of the backstory, but as I suspect a lot of you know, there's a number of legal things going on right now where there are major class action lawsuits in the music industry, in literature, and in code, right? Especially in violation of things like GPL licenses. Uh, I do think that, and again, I don't know if this is actually going to happen, but in an ideal world, the people who their data was used to train these models should absolutely be compensated. I don't know exactly how that would work, but there's no question in my mind that that is essentially, it's invaluable to the construction of the models. The models wouldn't exist without that data. And a lot of the data is, it's, the impact of that data is proportional to the fidelity of the data. The higher the quality of the data, the more impactful it is for the training of the models. So if you have a whole bunch of sort of garbage code, you know, you might not have actually helped that much. But if you're a super coder, like you're John Carmack, and they're training on your code to make their model, you should be compensated significantly. Unless, of course, you made that code available for free because you're just kind of like a good person, right? Like Linus Torvalds has. But a lot of these people, they haven't. One of them is Tim Davis. So Tim Davis, who's like this super coder out of Texas A&M, who wrote GraphBlaz, he has some evidence that I think it was OpenAI basically copied. No, sorry, I don't think it was OpenAI. I think it was even before this. No, sorry, it was. I'm crossing the streams. It was a trifecta thing where 3 companies were involved, but it was an OpenAI model. It was the Codex model, and the Codex model had perfectly, essentially produced a replica of Tim Davis's code, and it wasn't sitting well with him at all. In fact, let me see if I can find this, because the example here is so, I mean, if I was Tim, I would not necessarily be super thrilled either. And this was like all over the news a few years back. I think Tim posted this on X, and I don't know what ever happened with it. But this one's like particularly interesting to me because while I don't know that I've spoken with Tim Davis personally, many of the people in my inner circle are like good friends with him and basically say that this guy is like a legit awesome coder, and he's a real deal, and it's hard to ignore the evidence that he's providing. All right, yeah, I think I just found it. I was just trying to find the screenshot so you could see this. I'm gonna try to share. Yeah, I mean I'm gonna share the link for this, and then you guys can go to this article, but I'll also try to show it in the stream. So there's the link to it. I actually, in the class that I teach at the uni, I showed this example because it's so, I don't know, not great. This is probably going to be too small for the stream. But so here's Tim jumping in, saying, "Hey, Copilot, with public code blocked, emits large chunks of my copyrighted code with no attribution, no LGPL license." By the way, that's the big one. LGPL is anything GPL. It's protected commercially. Like you can't kind of do this. I mean, it's part of the license. For example, the simple prompt sparse matrix transpose CS produces my CS transpose in C sparse. My code on the left, GitHub on right, not okay. And what you probably can't see here, just because it's so small, is these things, this code here is like, it is almost identical down to the freaking comments. Like, I think even the variable names, the structure of this, right? For example, see how it has this for loop here. There's a for loop here, and then it has an operation. Then it has this nested for. So pay attention. This is like a very unique design pattern in software. So a for loop first, that's going to probably do some clearing or some whatever initialization. Then it's going to do this actual matrix walk, which usually is an embedded for loop because it's got to go through like the columns and the rows. And then it's going to do this operation. And notice over here, it's pretty small, but you can see the same thing is happening. It's doing this for loop here, which is doing this initialization, and then there's a single operation. Then after that, there is the two nested for loops that are doing basically these two same operations. I mean, like, down to the T. This is, like, let's look at one that is even more obvious sort of copyright violation. This is how I would catch students cheating off of each other. These variables here, these are variables that are being initialized at the beginning of this function for the non-expert programmers. The thing that's very important to understand here is that the order of the construction of these variables is not necessary until they're being accessed. What that means is that you can reorder the construction of these variables in any way that you want, as long as you do that before this first if statement where they're actually going to be used. But look at this. They are constructed in exactly the same way. This is not necessary at all. And for people that are not copying each other, the likelihood that they would construct the variables in exactly the same way, with exactly the same types and the same names, the probability of that is basically zero, unless it is a complete copy. So the point of all this is that, going back to Sean's excellent comment at the beginning, which is about, should people that are having their data be siphoned for these models, should they be compensated? 1,000% they should. Like, it's a royal state of suck that we're in right now, that people have not been properly attributed, cited, compensated, whatever. This is one of the things that I absolutely hate the most about some of the big tech mercenary AI, that it's like, to hell with ethics. Let's just like take all the data that exists in the world, no matter what its copyright is, and just use it to our advantage. Like, that's so wildly unethical. I don't know. It's really not great. And in many cases, it's like, I think it's a duality. It's sort of, there's two main things that are going on in people's minds that are encouraging them to kind of make these missteps. The first is the advancement of technology. And I'm all for the advancement of technology, but not recklessly, right? Not where you are stealing from other people to advance your own stuff. And that's not great, right? Like, this shouldn't actually be allowed. But the law is generally, as most of us that work in tech, as well as with like legal bindings, we generally know that legislation is usually a decade or so behind the current state of technology, just because technology moves so fast that legislation can't keep up. Like, it's not the fault of the lawmakers. It's just that the only people that actually really understand what's going on are the bleeding edge technologists, and they're so busy building the crazy tech, they're often not talking to the lawyers to explain all the stuff, right? And so there's like a catch-up time. The good news is I do think that legislation is starting to catch up, and in no way am I trying to block the advancement of technology. That's not what I'm trying to do at all. I'm just saying that there should be guardrails in place to protect people, right? People should, like Tim Davis, who is following the letter of the law and doing exactly what is put in place to protect him with these licenses. Big tech should not be able to simply just skirt over those, do whatever the hell they want, and then he's left wondering, like, why the hell do I even try to do this the right way, right? Like, I'm trying to have this be all buttoned up, potentially at some of my own personal cost, and slowing things down on my end, and having certain people not use my stuff because it's safeguarded, right? Because a lot of people won't use code or projects that are GPL'd, GPLified, so to speak, because it's a contaminating license and stuff. Like, for example, we won't touch it. And so he's going to slow down the adoption of his stuff because he's trying to put in the right guardrails, because he's explicitly saying what he wants as the parameters. And then big tech just comes in and is like, yeah, we don't care. We're just going to steamroll on top of you. I mean, I would love to see Tim Davis take OpenAI for a ride on this one, right? Like, I think it absolutely is probably fully justified. And I do think that there are some class action lawsuits that are out there right now that are trying to fix this. I also want to share that not everybody in AI is doing this, right? Like, a lot of people are going out of their way to try to do this the right way. Like, they're trying to build a community. They're trying to follow. This is what we try to do at Merly, is we're trying to only learn on repositories that are MIT, Apache, and Berkeley licensed. We stay completely away from things like GPL, just in case. We don't even do code synthesis, right? We just do essentially verification. So we're not even necessarily in the space of what GitHub's doing, but I think that there are good actors in AI. I think the problem is that a lot of the people that are getting the huge checks from the VCs, or they're making headlines because they're throwing caution to the wind, those people are largely not necessary. They're kind of like doing whatever they want at whatever cost to get ahead. And my hope is that we get some checks and balances to stop some of this nonsense. Anyway, that was like a 30-minute response to your question, Sean, but I love it. I am actually working with, as I think some of you know, I am working with some, I'm trying to figure out how to say this the right way. I'm working with some government officials to try to improve the legislation at the state and federal level that will enable AI to continue to move forward in reasonable ways, but will protect the people who are the owners of the data, where it's copyrighted and protected in the ways that it should be, and then that's fully respected. This is something that I've been working on for a while now, and it's a long, arduous process, but the good news is that the lawmakers are finally starting to understand, but there's a huge amount of work still to do. And as one might expect, it's super nuanced. Uh, okay, cool. Let's. Yeah, no. Thanks, Sean, for the great question, and just it's just great having you here, brother. Uh, I thought there was another Mano. Yeah, yeah, exactly. The hijacking fear part is so like just it's such bullshit, man. It just pisses me off because like especially when people that are already kind of doing very well are leveraging it because they it's not enough to be like at the front of the pack. They want to just try to have this exponential jump, right? I mean, this is, I think, a prime example of greed. Is you have a company that they're in a very strong position already. They've kind of come out of the, they kind of broke off from the mothership that was, that open company to then try to course correct and make things better. And I think that feels like that was the original charter of Anthropic, right? Is to sort of like do AI, but just not have it be super corrupt and misguided. And I kind of feel like that, at least initially, was what Anthropic was kind of doing. But what the hell is going on now? Right? Like, it just, there's just a number of missteps. And I understand that there's this big moment about potentially IPOing and there's investors and all this stuff. But I really do think that a measure of a person is how they behave under pressure, right? When there is a lot at stake, is that their ethics don't just suddenly devolve into nothing and they become the shadow of the person that they really are. I think the opposite is supposed to happen, is that they stand firm and they keep their priorities uh, organized the right way, that they're not suddenly allowing themselves this momentary lapse of reason because they just want an extra zero added to their already insurmountable wealth. Just, it really pisses me off, truthfully. Like, especially when it comes from the people that are at the front of the race. It's actually kind of like the strange thing. I care less about it when I see little guys doing it and they're kind of like doing stuff that's like maybe not super great, but they're trying to like claw their way in. I kind of feel like, yeah, I get it, right? I I wouldn't do that, but I can kind of understand it. But when you're literally like at the front of the race and you're still cheating, right? So you can add more to your lead. There's something seriously wrong in that system now. It's just not super wonderful. And that's awesome, Mario. Yeah, we love to have you. By the way, if you're not part of the Discord, I strongly recommend you check it out. Um, and for anybody that, so I want to pivot now to talk about how I've had time to think about how we can potentially minimize vibe corruption. And I don't, I want to be super clear. I don't think in any way that, yeah, that's awesome, Sean. Yeah, I suspect now that uh, you found us, we're probably going to be talking quite a bit. Like I'm already getting a super awesome vibe from you, brother. Plus that other thing we were talking about. At some point, when I get a little more time, I want to talk to you about that too. But that's for our private discussion. Uh, so I've had time to think about this AI takeover, and vibe corruption, and I have an idea now on how I think we can try to minimize it. What the real challenge of it though is it's like it's very in some sense it's very easy to avoid vibe corruption if you're an expert. It's a piece of cake. This is part of the reason why I think some people on social were pushing back on this when I was mentioning this, is people were like, just sandbox it, bro. Just stop vibe coding. I mean, yes, of course, right? The problem is there are a number of people that they can't read code. They can't write code, but they now are in a position where they have an app that they need to maintain because they have customers for it, right? And they have a business model. And so we're in this conundrum. They didn't write the code to begin with, but it's like a thing for them now. And now they need a path forward. Like, let's just try to be empathetic to their situation. What would they do? How do they move forward? That's the real problem we're trying to address here. It's not like, how does Goju deal with this? Bro, it's not a problem for me, right? It's not to say that I can't get vibe corrupted, but like, that's not how I use these systems. Like, when they write code, I look at the code and I yell at them for the crappiness of the code, right? I don't look at it like it's some magical machine. It's like, oh my gosh, wow, you produce something I could never do. It's more just like, wow, you produce something that's like actually pretty low par, but you did it much faster than I did it, or I could have done it. So we're a team, right? But that's not the audience we're focusing on. What we're focusing on is the millions of people, I think maybe millions, that are vibe coding now, and they're in a particular pickle because they have an app that is susceptible. Their only path forward historically has been vibe coding. They're potentially at risk now because of the Claude code leak. Much more significant risk than they were before. And it's like they have one of two paths. The path one is they stop vibe coding and they lose their app. They lose their company. They lose their business. That's not good. Path two, they continue vibe coding and they potentially get owned. That's also not good, right? So I have an idea now on how we can potentially start to work toward a remedy. It's not perfect, but it's like a beginning. But before we get into that, I think it's time to take a quick break for bio and all the stuff. Give me just 1 second. I'm just trying to make sure there's not any crisis going on. I have to monitor all the channels. Yeah, so let's maybe take a quick 5 and do all the stuff, and we'll regroup. I'll just keep the... No. I love it, Sean. Please continue to just chime in and share as things come up. I think it's super great. That's a really good question. So Sean's asking about how advanced vibe-coded security has become. And so first, it has made notable leaps forward. I think this is, if we're being fair, it's gotten significantly better over the last 4 years compared to what it was back when we first had like GPT 3.5. just no question. I mean, they were doing like SQL injections and buffer overruns and underruns like crazy. It was like a vulnerability nightmare. They were like the easiest things in the world to hack, and it's become significantly harder. That being said, I think there's still a ton of work to do. So if I were to try to give it a number, uh, I like without maxing on the AIs that exist today, like if you're just kind of a normal user, I would say maybe you're like 60 to 70% safe, depending on the environment. Like the more you work in compiled languages, the safer you get, especially if you work in something like Rust, that's going to have like buffer guarantees for you. But compiled languages are great in some sense because they are going to be really hard to vibe corrupt. Whereas if you use things like Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, it's just really easy to have that train go off the rails, especially with users not knowing. And you can do all kinds of like really bad things like dynamic package injection, and like runtime reflection that'll augment the code. I mean, there's just like a plethora of not great things. Um, yeah, Eric, what is the path three? Try to sell after figuring out they got open surface area. Um, yeah, can you share a little bit more? Uh, maybe what I'll do, let's take a short break, 5 minutes, and then I'll go through the comments, and then we'll talk a little bit about this collab coding. And then I'll take like another round of any kind of Q&A that you guys have, and then we'll call it a stream. Okay. Alrighty. We are almost back. Excellent. I'm just seeing your comment, Mario. And for anybody who is vibe coding and would like a quick analysis of your code, I strongly recommend you check out Mentor. That you download Mentor, install it, and add your repo to the Mentor system, and then see what Mentor has to say. If the score that you get from Mentor is, like, let's say over 600, I think you're in goodish shape. But if the score is below that, and especially if it's below 400, then we should talk. We should do things to try to level things up quickly, because it probably means that there's things to fix in a major way. I'll drop the link here. It's great that people are switching over to YouTube and Twitch and all the stuff, just so you can see the full screen. I'll continue to keep the Insta active, but it looks like a lot of people have shifted over. That's one of the first things. I think, in fact, I know many of you have already downloaded Mentor, and you're using it. So I'm showing Mentor over here, and I think Mentor's not perfect, right? Like it's a real system, and because it's a real system, it has bugs, and I think that it may have this thing where it gets stuck on inference sometimes. Hold on a second. No, it looks like it's saying it's almost done. So maybe it's not stuck. Maybe it's just a big process. But for most repos, what it will do is you'll add the repo, and then within an hour or so, it's going to do full lifetime analysis of the repo, and then you're going to see something like this. You're going to see a graph that's going to show you the lines of code, which is that blue line, the issues, which is this red line, and this orange line, which is the score. And this one in particular is got some work to do. Just trying to make this small enough to where we can see it. Here we go. Yeah. These are the issues that this has. So 5,500 issues is not exactly where you want to be. And I think I added these two as examples of, not great examples, but better repos will be in the 600 plus category. And this is a first order of defense, because you don't really have to know anything about code to do this. All you need to do is be able to install Mentor and then click on the add repo button here, and then know what the GitHub URL is. That's basically the extent of it. If you can do that, then Mentor can give you the answer, and then that at least gives you a proximity check on the direness of the situation. And I wanted to share this because there's a lot of vibe coders that have been reaching out asking like how much trouble am I in? And it's really hard to know without us having some kind of assessment on the quality of the repo. So check that out if you haven't already. And again, Mentor's free, 90 days. We'll extend it to infinity. And then you can also help us with the Mentor Planet project by adding repos, and then we can figure out who's vibe coding, who's not, and then minimize vibe corruption. So we can have a bi-directional value here. Okay. Sean, as far as IP leakage, scraping, do you mean for the Merli system for Mentor, or do you mean just in general for AIs figuring out IP of various companies? And awesome, Mario. Yeah, great to have you over on the stuff. Yeah, Chris, I'm just seeing your Discord comments now as far as the stuff from Cox. And yeah, I mean, it's not surprising, and I appreciate you sharing, and not great. So what I recommend for the vibe coding and vibe corruption is if you this is maybe going to sound a little strange, but I've spent a little time thinking about this, trying to put myself in the shoes of, okay, let's imagine that I don't know how to code and I'm vibe coding and I have an app and I have customers that are using this app. So I need to keep that kind of going, but I don't know how to secure it. What do I do? How do I keep the train moving? I think you can still do something like collab coding. And I think you can minimally do two things. The first is you can have Mentor be monitoring the repo as it's evolving. I think this is the first step, because Mentor's a deterministic AI, and it's going to give you a quality check. It's not perfect, but yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's from the one of the things that I do, but Mentor is from Merli, and Merli is a company that I founded back in 2022. We're principally focusing on kind of like a frontier research lab. At least that's how we're positioning ourselves now. And what we've done, Sean, is we've invented a new way to do artificial intelligence called DIF, deterministic intent folding. And we can get into what DIF is another time. But what Mentor is it's the first embodiment of a DIF system on code. Now DIF can work on any domain, but we have evidence of its efficacy in the coding domain. We're actually working with a number of different folks on exploring DIF in other domains, like natural language, computer vision, autonomous vehicles, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and actually, Chris, just to be kind of level it up, I believe that Mentor already has the hooks through GitHub Actions to be integrated directly for like all these commits. But one of the big powers of Mentor, and one of the things that's really important to me, is temporal reasoning. Is the ability to look at repositories as they change over time and understand intention, understand trends. And that's why Mentor is showing you a lifetime view, is that this is one of the ways that we have figured out you can kind of see if someone is vibe coding or not. Like, for example, if you have these repos that have been existent, like ClickHouse. ClickHouse is a great repo where we can say with some certainty that they are kind of like vibe coding themselves now. And the way that we can tell this is just by looking at the trending information of the repo over time. So this is ClickHouse, and started in 2009, and then this is us today. And then you'll notice that right around I don't know, here-ish or something, the lines of code is increasing at this really high rate. I think right around here is probably the biggest point where the issues are skyrocketing, probably because it's just turning into a lot of spaghetti code. And oh, that's awesome, Sean. The orange line here, this is the score. So the score is continually degrading. It's getting like way worse. And it's not proportional with the lines of code, right? So prior to this, like back here, I mean, maybe here's a really good point. In 2020, I don't think the system was... Yes, Chris, exactly. ClickHouse, the database. That's exactly what we're talking about here, right? Shocking, right? Shocking. Wouldn't expect this, would you? I wouldn't expect it. I thought there's like no way that these guys that are like this buttoned up would be vibe coding or using AI in such a way that it's just having a whole bunch of slop. But if you download Mentor and you add ClickHouse to it, and then you look at the most recent code, the things that Mentor is going to show you should be, I mean, it's mortifying. Some of the stuff. Let me see if I can show you one of them. Yeah, here we go. Keep in mind, this is in production. And this is why something like Mentor, I think, is so valuable. Is ClickHouse is millions of lines of code, and so who can go through millions of lines of code in a manual way? I can't, but Mentor can. So look at this. This is a single if expression. What are they doing? What is going on here? This is not the ClickHouse that we know and love. This is vibe coded monstrosity. This is like levels of not awesome. And I think this is all part of the new code that's been introduced very recently. Like, look at this slop. This is just pure AI badness. Any of us seasoned programmers, we could rewrite this and make this significantly better. But the point is that this is happening everywhere. It's not just ClickHouse. It's, yeah, I know, right, Chris? It's exactly what is going on. And it's, what's going on is this is going on. And this is something you can see only if you look at things through a temporal lens. This is very hard to see if you just look at a single snapshot. I mean, the single snapshot will show you about the bad code, but it won't tell you about how it was good before. It won't tell you about back here, back in 2019, when things were right. This is the ClickHouse that we know and love. This ClickHouse of excellent source code. ClickHouse that only had 70 issues. ClickHouse that, like, we knew that this was excellent and great code. That's the ClickHouse that we thought existed. That's 2019, 2020. Fast forward to 2026, and we now have an order of magnitude more issues, and a lot of it it's just pure AI slop. It's just like, are they not doing code reviews anymore? Because, yeah, it's pretty scary that we've gotten to that it's affecting the repos that are ones that we know and love and trust. That's the part that's maybe the scariest, because if we know that this type of code is acceptable now, then what's the likelihood that they're going to get vibe corrupted? It's probably pretty high, because this is no business in any kind of ClickHouse that I can imagine. So that's actually part of the solution. That's part of how we, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, since we're on summaries now, this is this is why you should download Mentor. And you should add all the repos and dependencies of code that you're using, because code that you used to use that you thought was fully buttoned up can suddenly be going massively sideways. And unless you have something like Mentor that's telling you the entire space, you may have no idea that it's happening. None. Or at least I wasn't aware. One of the other ones that I'll just, I'm fairly certain that VS Code, hold on, let's see if I can refresh to get this to be prettier. There we go. I think that VS Code is on its way to being vibe coded based on this right here. And that was not the case for the first 10 years of its lifetime. From 2015 up until about the end of 2024, I don't believe that Visual Code was being vibe coded. But suddenly something has changed very recently, which then raises a lot of questions about vibe corruption. And keep in mind, this is VS Code. Like, how many people are using VS Code? So if VS Code is being vibe coded, and on top of that, people are looking at the open source and they're seeing this, how hard would it be to get like a Giatan event, right? Yeah, well, and that's maybe the craziest part, Devin, is one would expect it's not all repos, right? As I understand it, things in LF are pretty locked down. Like, if we, for some reason, I can't add Git. Git's in here, but it's somehow you like can't search on it. Maybe this is a good one. Yeah, this is in NVIDIA's uh, fuser not being vibe coded. I think TS is not a language. Yeah, I mean, I do not know if I disagree. I don't know that I disagree, my friend. Uh, but so this is from NVIDIA, and this is this is open source, and I think this is a good example of these guys are not vibe coding this. So it's I don't know, Devin, that it is all open source. I think that a lot of open source is still on the straight and narrow. Like things that are coming from CNCF, I think are pretty buttoned up. The stuff, like if we look at this, what is this? Um, yeah, this is this Envoy proxy gateway. The lines of code are increasing at a pretty strong rate, but look at the issues. The issues are basically flat. So there's a lot of code out there that is not being just AI slopped, but there is a lot that is. And I think what we want to do, especially to avoid vibe corruption, is we want to do everything we possibly can to stay away from the stuff that's being vibe coded, simply because they're likely to be some of the prime targets for vibe corruption. Yeah. Uh, so the idea really principally of what vibe of how to avoid vibe corruption through collab coding is that you don't just arbitrarily accept the code reviews or the code changes, even if you are you're not an expert coder, right? Even if you can't read code. This part is probably a little bit strange. Is so you can't read code. How is it that you could review the code changes? Well, in many of the programming languages, the syntax itself is somewhat human readable. And I think that there are ways that humans that are not experts can begin to piece things together to start to understand the structure. So there's like two things that you could do. The first is with Mentor, if Mentor is flagging anything that's an issue, you use Mentor to go into it, and then Mentor goes in and explains to you what the issue is, and then it comes in and it rewrites it. And if Mentor comes in and says, yeah, this is a security concern, then there's a good chance that you are being vibe corrupted. Then on top of that, I think that when you manually go through the code, even if you're not an expert, right? Like I'm not an expert in all these programming languages. Now, this is a bit unfair because I have been coding for a while, so I can just sort of reason about the syntax. But I think that humans can do this too. So the notion that you are thinking about code like it's this black box, I think is the core problem. That my recommendation for people that are vibe coders is that you stop just arbitrarily accepting the code and not looking at it. You minimally have something in place that is doing a scan to assess the quality, and then minimally you're looking at the numbers. to give you insight. And then if you start to see that the numbers go sideways, like for example, a mentor is giving you this is your repo. It's like, okay, cool. I'm good. Right. And now we'll just press the arrow keys. But if like this is your repo, a mentor is giving you this, you should be concerned. This should cause you a momentary pause where you say, hold on a second. Maybe I need an expert to get involved. Devin, as far as do I think we'll just get better tools and guardrails? I mean, in theory, this is what I think a lot of the VCs and people that kind of just are saying, oh, well, it's just going to get better. It'll just naturally get better. And I think that there's some truth to that. But at the same time, there are technological limitations that inhibit this sort of unending growth down a certain technological vector. And the simplest analogy that I can draw out is petroleum-based cars. Like, we've had petroleum-based cars for a very long time. Why is there not a vehicle that we drive that gets 100 miles per gallon? And I'm not talking about hybrid or electric. I'm talking about pure petroleum. And that's the point, is that there is an upper bound that we're likely going to run into that can't be circumvented simply because we've reached some sort of technological limit of this. And the technological limit is the limit of language models. Now, using other technology like diff and other AIs, then I think that you can sidestep these, or you can improve them, but they require a fundamental shift. Sort of like the analogy of building hybrid vehicles, is that now you have hybrid, and so, you can potentially get to 60 or 70 miles, or you have full electric, but it requires a fundamental foundational technical shift. And that's the thing that I think we're going to need to get us beyond a lot of the current AI slop. Because language models fundamentally, at least LOMs, language only models, they don't natively have these semantic reasoning capabilities. Yeah. Right. So, Sean, that's kind of like what I'm saying is I do think that there is sort of a right and a wrong way to vibe code. The wrong way is one, aren't managing it in a way that's guiding it such that it is, it's being prompted the right way. So it's getting off the rails pretty quickly. That is, I think, an example of how you should not do this. And then the other way is what I'm calling collab coding, where you're actively working with the system. You're going through the code. You have a strategy and a plan, and it kind of keeps it on the rails. And you're using it with potentially other tools like Mentor or other things that help level it up. At some point, diff will likely be integrated into some of these AI systems. And so the quality, my hope is that they'll just automatically level up. Anyway, we've been going now for a little over 2 hours, and I think that we covered the main things that I wanted to cover. We wanted to get into what's going on with Claude, and is this real, this kind of quality thing that I think a lot of us are seeing. And I do think that absolutely, Sean, I think that ontology is very important. And I don't think that we have the ontology today, which is part of the problem. Is I think a lot of people, this is why I'm trying to draw this distinction actually between vibe coding and collab coding. Is just like you were saying, there's like a right way to do vibe coding and the wrong way. Is that I think in your head, what you're probably imagining is the right way of vibe coding is what I'm probably thinking of as collab coding. And so once we start to figure out the ontology, then we can start to describe this better, and then we can help people that are potentially going about this the wrong way, and then shift them, be like, okay, cool. So don't stop using AI. That's not what we're saying at all. Keep using AI. AI is amazing. But use it more like this so you can stay a little bit more on the rails. I think that that's one of the key things we want to be striving toward. Anyway, what I want to try to do now is see if I can, in some miracle effort, turn this into a VOD and then drop this on GTT proper. But I appreciate all of you guys joining in, and I love that we're starting to get like the Insta folks pivoted to YouTube so you can see the full screen and stuff. But it's a really interesting funnel on how all this is happening. Also, to the best of my knowledge, it appears as though TikTok has been streaming this entire time, but I actually have no way of knowing. So in closing, yeah. And I want to talk with you, Sean, and the rest of the crew about this more, because I think that that's the path forward, is to find a way to work with the AIs in some fashion that keeps them kind of on the rails, but it keeps us looped into the code, so it limits vibe corruption as much as possible. And then everybody's kind of leveling up. We won't get into these cases where, like ClickHouse, right? Like Chris was saying just a little bit ago, I don't know that I trust ClickHouse anymore now. Oh, and that's awesome, son. It's great to know that TikTok was actually working. Like, I legitimately don't know if I can trust ClickHouse now, because it's clear to me that they are accepting code into the main line it's unacceptable. And it's mind-boggling, because this is ClickHouse. This is a really good repository. Like, how did this happen? This isn't a garbage repo. This is a repo that was extremely high quality, that was almost like a standard of excellence, and is now totally going to shit. Right? How many other repos are there out there? This is why we have to do the Mentor Planet project, because I suspect there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other repos that are going down this path, and we just don't know yet. And we need to know. We minimally need to know which ones they are, so we can put them in, the vibe jail, as we're jokingly calling it. It's like the vibe jail is you vibe coded your way into this badness, and now you can get out of jail, but you got to vibe code. You got to get yourself out. You got to get yourself out of it. Oh, sweet. Andrew. Awesome. Great, brother. It's good to... We were actually talking about you. I was hoping that you would be the person on TikTok to know if we were over there. Anyway, you guys are amazing. I'm glad we did this quick VOD, and all the stuff is converging. Please join the Discord if you're not on there already, and download Mentor, not for my help, not for your friend's help, but for your help, and add your repo to it to see where you are. Like, that's maybe the most important thing that I can share with people. All right. So let's continue this discussion on our Discord. You guys are amazing. Keep going.